I have my family here from the East Coast.
The Wednesday, December 13th, 2017 regular business meeting of the Pasadena Area Community College District will now come to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Selvage?
Here.
Mr. Osterling?
Here.
Dr. Fellow?
Here.
Ms. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Helsman?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Waugh?
Here.
Ms. Ekshian?
Trustee Osterling, are there any public comment cards for the closed session agenda items?
None received.
Thank you. We will now adjourn to closed session. Oh, excuse me. The closed session items are Government Code 54957, Evaluation of Employee Superintendent President, Government Code 54957, Public Employee Appointment Director, Professional Development Director, Enterprise Application Services. Okay. The Wednesday, December 13th, 2017 regular business meeting of the Pasadena Area Community College District will now come to order. The board has met in closed session, and we have no reportable action. Roll call, please.
Dr. Selvage?
Here.
Mr. Osterling?
Here.
Dr. Fellow?
Here.
Ms. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Helsman?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Waugh?
Here.
Ms. Ekshian?
Here.
Thank you. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead. Please stand and place your hand over your heart. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 on the agenda is convene annual organizational meeting, and this will involve several items. Organizational meetings may include administration of oath of office, which does not apply at this meeting because we did not just have a election for the office of trustee for any of the seats. Election of officers, President, Vice President, Clerk, Secretary, setting the day and time of regular meetings, appointment of representatives. This is optional to the Board of the Los Angeles County School Trustees Association, the County Committee on School District Organization Committee, Community College League of California, and other representatives as may be appropriate. And finally, to authorize signatures for by board officers and college officers for various types of documents. The board last year complied with the California Voter Participation Rights Act by changing its cycle for elections of trustee seats. Dr. Verdian and I have talked with our outside counsel, Warren Kinsler, and he has given us some guidance on what our options are at this point in time for organizational meetings. We need to point out that irrespective of what we decide to do tonight, there will be an organizational meeting in July of next year following the June 2018 election for 4 seats of this board. So tonight, the guidance that we have been given is that we should consider 2 questions. And the first is whether or not the board should extend the term of office of the 3 board officers that were elected a year ago, at which time everybody assumed it was, well, at that time it was in fact a 12-month term. The board, under guidance from council, has the option to extend those until the July organizational meeting that will be required next year. If the board does not decide to extend the term of office for the existing trustees, then it would be appropriate to have an election for each one of those 3 seats. So at this time, I will entertain a motion as to whether or not the board should elect to extend or not extend the term of office of the 3 board officers. And this can be a motion in either direction.
I move to convene the reorganization at this time, and then we can consider reorganization in June. So that's the option. We will
Okay,
have to reconsider reorganization, and we can consider at the time whether or not that board continues. But I think at this time, I would like to move that we reorganize for new officers at this time.
I would second that motion, but I would also say, Trustee Watt, we don't have an option that we will have to do a reorganization in July, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yeah, we will have a reorganization meeting in July.
I understand, so I misspoke, but what I intended to say is in June, we could have decided at the time to extend that term. So we'll reorganize in June, and then we could extend the term of those officers at that time.
So we would have the elections now and then decide what to do again in
Yes.
June.
Yes.
The
I
question,
second that motion.
so that is a motion to have an election of officers at this time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, there's a second from Trustee
Second,
Osterline. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Passes 7-0 with the student trustee voting in favor. Okay, so then at this point, it would be appropriate to take nominees for the offices, starting with president.
I nominate Dr. Tony Fellow for president.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Oops, sorry.
She didn't mean that, Tony.
This passes 7-0 with the student trustee voting in favor. Thank you. Now, are there any nominees for vice president?
I nominate Trustee Osterling for vice president.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Fellow. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes 7-0 with the student trustee voting in favor. Nominations for clerk of the Board of Trustees.
I nominate Trustee Hilsman for clerk.
Second.
I second. Sorry.
Student trustee seconded. She beat out Trustee Fellow.
Better get this one
Any
right.
discussion? All in favor? Passes 7-0 with the student trustee voting in favor, which I think is mandatory since you seconded. Thank you. So I guess the, excuse me?
Secretary.
Oh,
I'm secretary.
I think the bylaws specify that
the
the
president
superintendent
is.
president will be the secretary, but do we have to vote on it? Okay.
I nominate the president to be the secretary of the board.
Second. We had to think about that.
Thank you, Trustee Osterling.
Purposes
Okay.
of clarity, that's the superintendent
Superintendent,
president,
right, as opposed
Yeah,
to the
thank you.
as
board
opposed to
president.
board
All,
president.
any discussion? All in favor? Passes 7-0 with the student trustee voting in favor. And the vice, or the assistant secretary to the board.
That's it, buddy.
That's it.
Good done.
Oh,
We're done.
all right. We also have an assistant secretary specified in the bylaw. We will take care of that business at a later time if it's necessary. Thank you. So this then concludes the election of board officers, which will extend to the next organization meeting, which will occur in July, at which time the board will have another organizational meeting. Is there anything that we need to sign or?
Now we have to do certification. We can pass that on.
Yeah. But, okay. Who signs this, the new people or the old people?
Everybody.
Everybody. Okay, now, he signs president now, because we've already voted.
Not yet.
He signs that, not me. Okay, you want to sign that?
I'll be putting them into school, so. I won 2 scholarships.
President now, do you want to switch seats or just shift the paper?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Where did you go to university?
That it? Signing?
Trustee Fellow,
Thank you.
pass the gavel. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do they officially?
Okay, thank you, trustees. It's nice to have your confidence, and I hope to do the best job I can this year. I'm very interested. I think our first important job is to have a new president, and make sure we're going to hire the best president for PCC. And I do want to do all I can to support the foundation, which is doing a great job, particularly in its largest fundraising in history of PCC, and certainly to keep our promise to our students, which is number one. And I also plan to do some work this year of raising money for study abroad. I think it's very important that our students go abroad. And Dr. D'Amico and I are planning perhaps a film festival. And so we encourage everybody to come out for that, and we'll let you know more. We will proceed with the regular business meeting now, and I'd like to have a meeting, a motion to approve the agenda.
So before we adjourn the organizational meeting, I think we have item 6, the setting dates for the for next year's meetings.
Correct.
Yeah, is there any questions that you have? And Dr. Verdi and I will also go through that again.
Let me, so you will notice that in January, we're going to have one meeting only on the 24th of January. February, one meeting, the 21st, and then after that, we will get back into the regular pattern, first and third Wednesday of the month.
So if I could raise a point here. Trustee Wah, did you have a question?
So I just wanted to recommend that with the new officers, that you review the calendar and set at least 2 meetings where the board can meet and retreat. One, I think, is important because we'll have a new superintendent coming in, and we need to do goal setting, which I think we missed this last year. And then we are thinking about maybe convening the board again to, to support the new superintendent coming in. And so I think it would be important to at least schedule 2 retreats, and if we could schedule those early on, I think it's helpful for the rest of the board members.
Yeah, thank you, Linda.
So I wanted to raise the issue. We've been fortunate to have as a consultant to our board Bryce Harris, a former chancellor and somebody who's been around the system a great deal. And one of his points and recommendations that he made to us was to take another look at our meeting schedule. He felt that we were really outliers in terms of our meeting schedules, that we were meeting generally twice a month, and that there's several reasons for this suggestion by Mr. Harris. One is that it does place quite a burden on the administration to prepare for these meetings, and sometimes a lot of the business that's done is pretty perfunctory. The other question would be when Trustee Wah raised the issue of the special meetings. We do like to have the special meetings, and we like them to direct them to particular topics or particular issues that have come up. Generally, the way this is handled around the community college system is that they have regular monthly business meetings, and then they have special meetings more frequently than we do. We have a lot of trouble sort of scheduling our special meetings in between the very busy schedule of business meetings. So I know that this issue has come up before, and there's probably been discussion prior to when I came on the board, but I want to raise it again and make a proposal that we have a monthly meeting in January and again in February, and then in March and April we have 2 business meetings scheduled. One of them happens to coincide with the ACCT meeting in San Antonio on the same day, and then the April 18th meeting is during the spring break. So what I would suggest, especially since we're contemplating special meetings, would be to try as kind of a pilot canceling the March 21st meeting and the April 18th meeting, and see how we proceed with that, see how we feel about that in terms of the scheduling. I don't think that would cause a great disruption, and it would also give us an idea about whether we might conduct our business more efficiently that way.
Thank you.
So I would like to make that motion that we strike the 21st of March and the 18th of April, and then reconsider it after that.
Ms. Wah,
Oh,
is
okay.
there a motion, a second?
Well, I will second Trustee Hilsman's recommendation, but I wanted to add some additional. So I also heard the same recommendation for former Chancellor Harris, and I think it's also one that Trustee Fellow has voiced in the past, that perhaps we're having too many meetings. My only concern is in the past, where we went down to one meeting, we seemed to have, that one meeting seemed to take hours, and we weren't out of here until 11 or 12, and
Yeah, that was
know.
my concern too, and that's why I suggest that we do this on just a trial basis.
right, and I would like to recommend that I would amend the motion, a friendly amendment, to say that we direct the officers then to come back with a schedule to the board of their proposed schedule of then looking at one meeting per month with some study sessions and/or some retreats, and then bring that back for final approval to the board.
And that's what I was going to suggest, that the officers get together, so that I'm very supportive of that.
So if Trustee Hilsman accepts that, then I would make that recommendation.
Any further comments?
I have a comment.
That covers my comment.
Well, obviously, and I'm trying to match calendars together, but there's going to be a period of time where there'll be a lot of intensive meetings for the board on the superintendent search. So when you meet, you might look over that calendar and figure out how that loops in, and that gives the administration opportunities if there's emergency pieces of board action that need to be taken, could be, a quick item on the beginning of one of those agendas.
Yes.
I wanted to mention the same thing that Trustee Martin mentioned, and when we hear from our consultant a little bit later on the presidential search, we might want to keep in mind that we may have to have another meeting or two, special meeting, if there's actions that the board needs to take to keep the momentum going on the search.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Well, thank you. So I am not really opposed to the fact that we could go to meeting once a month, but I think we need to remember that our board policy does say that we meet twice a month. So I'm not sure it will be in our interest tonight to pass something before we amend our policy. So that's my take.
Mr. Osterling?
Okay, so the motion on the floor, if it isn't stated that way already in response to trustee Brown's concern, would just be that, that we would advise the executive committee, the officers, to do that, and we, to look at the schedule. And we might look at revising our policy as necessary in order to keep our meeting schedule in sync with our formal policies.
Thank you. Ms. Wara, do you agree with that?
I agree. I accept that.
Thank you. And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Hilsman, because I wanted to talk to the executive committee. As Ms. Waugh said, I've thought about this for a long time, and I've talked to trustees at our nearby community colleges. And there's also, I've always thought the budget is so important that it should be a separate meeting. And we'll talk about that also. Any further comments or questions? Please vote at this time.
What are we voting for?
The motion to cancel the March 21st and April 18th meeting and then revisit the policy of twice monthly meetings.
And with additional amendments that this is a recommendation from the board to the executive committee, and the executive committee will set a calendar with those recommendations in mind, and if necessary, we'll adjust our policy. That's the full vote as, motion as amended.
Yes. Any other questions or comments? Please vote. Thank you very much. At this time, we have
So, you know, I've
So you
Ms.
have to,
Ms. Brown.
yeah, abstain.
It's your, okay.
Very clear.
It's a dim light.
No, that's abstention.
that's an abstention. So you have to notify
The student
the vote.
trustee.
Sorry?
Student trustee, you voted on that?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. This is the time for introductions and recognitions.
You have to announce the vote.
Oh, the vote is one abstention and
The vote on the
Rest
last
of-
issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
one abstention and 6 yeses, including and then the trustee vote. Okay, this is the time for introductions and recognitions.
Mr. President, you will administer the oath of office to our new sergeant, Mr. Alan Chan. So,
Mr. Chan, please come up. If you'd raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Alan Chan, do solemnly swear
I, Alan Chan, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will and faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Wanna say something?
Oh.
Very official.
I'd like to thank Dr. Verdi and Dr. Storti and Chief Machin for their confidence in me and, you know, moving up to the rank of sergeant. And just to briefly say that I'd like to thank my wife and family sitting over there, the rest of the PCC Police Department family right behind, Sergeant Abernathy for all their wonderful support. Hopefully, God willing, I will be able to provide another 20 years of service here to support and further the PCC community. Thank you.
That's a wonderful first duty to do, too. I appreciate that. This is the time for comments on non-agenda items.
So I'd like to invite Miss Gloria Hughes to the lectern for her public comment. Is Miss Hughes not here? So then I'll move on to Miss Stella Berga. Ms. Berga, you'll have 3 minutes, and our former clerk, our retired clerk, will keep the 3-minute timer, and we'll let you know when you have a minute or so to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Stella Murga, and I'm the Executive Director of the Adelante Youth Alliance, a Pasadena-based nonprofit organization established in 2001. Our focus is preparing youth for college and careers, and we do that in partnership with PCC, producing the 2 largest college and career conferences in the state of California each year, the Adelante Mujer Latina Conference and the Adelante Young Men Conference. I am also a member of PCC's President's Latino Advisory Committee, on which I have served on for a number of years now. I was here in June to share with you how we achieve student success by having successful professionals who look like our students and have similar cultural and life experiences serve as workshop presenters to share their college and career journeys with them. These presenters are able to relate to the students and encourage them to advance academically and professionally. I asked you then how you plan to increase the number of Latino faculty here at PCC. After so many years of working to recruit students for PCC, I was happy to learn that the number of Latino students increased to 51% of the overall student population, over 250,000 students. PCC is therefore designated as a Hispanic Serving Institution, or HSI, qualifying for federal funding through Title III of the Higher Education Act of 1965 to serve a high number of needy students. Title V of the Act, introduced in 1998, is another funding stream, specifically for HSIs to assist institutions in improving their higher educational provision. Is the board aware of that? Of these funding streams because of PCC's HSI status? These large Department of Education grants defined as HSI can be used for many academic purposes, serving all ethnicities at the institution, including faculty development, funds and administrative management, development and improvement of academic programs, endowment funds, curriculum development, scientific or laboratory equipment for teaching, renovation of instructional facilities, joint use facilities, academic tutoring, counseling programs, and student support services. So again, I ask, what are you doing to increase the number of Latino faculty and faculty of color of PCC to attract more students from our local community and ensure that our students thrive and graduate? The President's Latino Advisory Committee stands in solidarity with the African American community in expressing concerns related to hiring practices that reflect cultural competence and concern for the students enrolled at PCC, where, as I've said, the majority of student population are people of color. Now, with the search on for the new superintendent president, the board must change PCC's current board policies, BB 2431, which refers to the selection of the superintendent president, and BB 2432, which refers to the succession of the superintendent president, which are not standard policies or practices at any other college. The current policies do not allow for adequate participation by PCC's stakeholders and limits this major decision to only 7 board members who compose the interview committee, which goes against the spirit of the Equal Employment Opportunity Plan previously adopted by the board. The Latino Advisory Committee requests that this policy be changed immediately as an act of good faith to better serve the college community. I served on the screening committee for the current superintendent.
We're over the time limit. If you could just wrap up your comments. Thank you very much.
Okay. The members of the board have not gone through the cultural competence and hiring practices training, which is required of all other PCC employees. So we urge you to change those policies and to better reflect, help PCC better reflect the community that you were elected to serve. Thank you very much.
Comments? That's it? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on now to the consent items, and we'll take consent items dealing with students. There are 2 items there. Do any of the directors?
I believe we need to approve
Oh, we didn't
minutes,
approve the
which
minutes.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please vote. Are you doing abstaining?
Yeah, I wasn't
Okay, we
here.
have student trustee and you can still vote if you're.
You can still vote. You can still vote even if you're not here. Yes,
We
you
have
can.
6 voting yes in the student trustee and 1 abstention. We'll now turn to the consent items, and the first deal with students again, and we have 2 consent items today. Do anybody want anything pulled? I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Martin, a second from Ms. Waugh. Further discussion? Please vote. Thank you. The second items deal with instruction. We have 1 item there. I'll
Move to
entertain a
approve.
motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Waugh, a second from Mr. Hilsman. Further discussion? Please vote.
Whoop.
All are in the affirmative, including the student trustee. The next items deal with the business. I will entertain a motion unless anyone would like anything pulled.
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion from Mr. Hilsman, a second from Ms. Waugh. Further discussion? Please vote. Unanimous, including the student trustee. The next items deal with personnel. I'll entertain a motion unless you'd like to have something pulled.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion.
Mr. President, we do have a minor change in the in number 3.
Okay.
Dr. Storti, there was a slight change there. We've removed a name, has been removed from that.
That's correct. Actually, in item number 2, a name has been removed.
A name has been removed from it, and the correct list is on the what is being approved right now.
That's correct.
Thank you.
With that correction, we have a motion from Ms. Waugh and a second from Mr. Osterling. Further discussion? Please vote. All votes are in the affirmative. And now we turn to action items. And the first is receipt of fiscal year 2016-2017 district financial audit. Mr. President.
Dr. Storti, would you please introduce this item and our guests?
Yes, our fiscal year audit was completed by the accounting firm of CLA, and tonight to present the audit results is Renee Graves. She's a partner with the firm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm just going to share a few comments and highlights related to the audit report. We did meet with the Finance Committee back in November, so we did have the opportunity to go through the report in quite a bit of detail with the Finance Committee, and of course management was there as well. And between the 2 of us, I believe we were able to answer all the questions that the Finance Committee had for us. So the 2 items that I would like to mention, I believe you have in your packet. One is a letter. It's our required communication letter to you as the board of the college, and so it's our requirement to report the results of the audit from a qualitative standpoint. So it goes through a number of areas that we need to report back to you if we had any difficulties, if we had any disagreements in regard to implementation or the application of an accounting policy, if we had any adjustments to the financial statements. And so in all of these areas, this letter is very clean, as none of those situations arose as we went through the audit process. From time to time, we will also have observations that we may include in this letter. They're items that we just want to make sure that you're aware that we had conversations with management on certain items. In this year, there are no observations that are included in this letter either, so it's a very clean letter. In regard to the audit report itself, just to mention some of the very key pages, and I feel a little bit bad. It's a very large document. There's a lot of hours that go into it from management's point of view as far as preparing their trial balances and providing all of that to us for audit purposes and the footnotes. So to really only talk about 3 or 4 pages is almost a little bit of an injustice, but I think these are the pages that will be most pertinent to your needs. So with that, one of the pages is the opinion. And the opinion is, there's not a page number on it, but it's immediately following the table of contents. So the opinion that we have rendered on these financial statements are a clean or an unmodified opinion. It is the highest type of an opinion that we can render. And what that means is that the financial statements that management has prepared are both fairly stated and following all the appropriate accounting principles. The other item I would turn your attention to is toward the back of the report, beginning on page 62, there's a series of 3 letters dealing with internal controls and compliance, both related to the financial statements, to federal programs, and then also to state programs. In all of these areas, we do not have any findings in the report, so each of these letters are again, they're clean letters. They don't refer to any instances of noncompliance. So the other page that I would like to bring your attention to is on page 70, and it is a nice summary of the entire document. Again, it identifies the type of an opinion that we rendered. It also lets you know that if we had any findings or any issues, there would be yeses marked, but on page 70, everything there is indicated as a no, which means, again, we didn't have any situations that came up that we needed to have a finding on. And then finally, at the very bottom of the page, it identifies the district as a low-risk auditee, which, again, is a huge accomplishment for management to have that. And not all districts in the state of California are able to achieve the status of being a low-risk auditee. So I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have in regard to the audit if you've had a chance to read through it and have some specific questions. Or if you'd like me to go through it in more detail, I can do that as well.
This is the time if trustees have any questions. I'm going to ask the committee if they have any input at this time.
I'd just like to, a few comments. The Budget and Audit Committee consists of myself, Trustee Martin, and Trustee Osterling, and I guess this is probably the second or third one of these that the 3 of us have sat through. And this is a clean audit. It's the 2nd year in a row that we've got a completely clean audit, so congratulations, Dr. Verdian, and everybody else who helped and put all this together. It was very gratifying, and we appreciate your work on that. Also, I just want to note that there are ongoing changes and revisions to the accounting standards that apply to government agencies, and we are almost to the point where all of those big unfunded liabilities are showing up explicitly. Next year, I think the final stroke to account for those very large numbers is the inclusion explicitly of the unfunded liability for the other post-employment benefits. Those, along with the unfunded liabilities for the various pension plan obligations, are some pretty big numbers. We are, as a college, creating reserves in order to be able to deal with these increasing obligations that are projected to be a burden in the years to come. they're not a complete solution, but we've got a good financial statement here. It's accurate, and it's including now almost everything, and next year will explicitly include all of these ongoing obligations. Also want to mention one thing. We do now have an internal auditor position, and we received at that meeting as a kind of adjunct to the presentation of the audit from our auditors, a rundown on what our internal auditor is now doing in the way of internal controls for the college, and that's a very wise position. It's very wise for us to have a position like that, and I think we've got a really good start on it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Again, as a committee member, a couple things I'd like to point out. On page 50, you'll see a list of all the federal awards that we received, and the first one is $33 million in Pell Grants. That totals up for the Department of Education and to direct money of about $36 million of financial aid in one form or another. And that's a tremendous amount of money. It's a tremendous amount of good for a lot of students. It's a big part of our budget. It's been an area, a decade ago or so, we had some real internal issues with that. Obviously, it's a lot of money and a lot of regulation. So I'm pleased with the amount of funds we're able to award to our students, and I'm pleased with the way the college is administering those funds and taking care of business. So that was a highlight to me, and I appreciate it. Excuse me. Page 55 is a list of all the fund balances. We focus a lot of time on our operations, of course, but we do have some other funds, and I think the board would be interested in seeing those. And as Ms. Graves pointed out, page 70 is the kind of the federal clean opinion summary that we pretty much nailed it on every single point. The board did meet in a closed executive session with the auditors without any of the PCC staff present, the board subcommittee, and got rave reviews from the auditors for the good work of everyone they worked with at the college and the order of which things are, and made some really helpful suggestions that just shows no sour grapes over our new auditor that we managed to pluck away from them. No Sour Grapes had some great suggestions on how we could best utilize the services of our internal auditor, and I appreciate you doing that, and we've already shared some of those with the superintendent, and different ways that different hotlines and things will be available for people that we can make sure that we're tracking and that the independent auditor is tracking, and even to the inclusion of maybe a member of the board being on the list of the hotline member of the audit committee, so that if someone had a complaint over anybody in the administration, the superintendent, or even the internal auditor, there's somebody auditing the internal auditor. So thought that was a good process, and we're going to work towards that. And that was, again, thanks to our auditors for thinking proactively on our behalf. And then finally, at the end of the meeting, and it was kind of like after the Lakers won 2 championships in a row and somebody was promising 3-peat, our superintendent, because, I've been on the board 38 years, and we've got 2 clean opinions, which we have gotten many times, without a single finding. And that's a pretty big accomplishment. Not a single finding 2 years in a row, and our superintendent promised a 3-peat. So there it is. It's out there. We're waiting for a 3rd banner. So it's just a job well done, Dr. Storti, Dr. Verdian, and the whole accounting team.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. Martin. Thank you for being here today.
Well, you're very welcome. And I will just mention, I believe in your packet as well, or at least at your space, there was also the Measure P audit report for the bond issue. So again, that is another clean opinion. It is a specific opinion on the fund. That fund is included in the district, but it is a special audit report that's required by the Education Code as well as the California Constitution. So it's both a financial and a performance audit. It's a clean opinion on both pieces of the audit. If you have not had a chance to look at it in detail, the one page that you may want to pay particular attention to is page 18 of the report. And here it does, within our procedures performed, it does specifically tell you the amount, the number of transactions that we looked at, as well as the percentage of total transactions. So we looked at 30 separate transactions. So we're looking at those for the typical attributes that we would look at as far as testing, as far as, is there a purchase order, approvals, were the goods received, all of those types of control issues. But then it goes a step further, since it's specific to the bond audit, and it's looking at that expenditure and tying it back to the voter-approved list to make sure that that expense is appropriate to be used with bond proceeds. So here we're giving the percentage that we tested. The program is winding down. So the percentage tested is not as high because there's so many items that are of a smaller dollar nature at this point. Back in the heyday, if you will, then there were a lot of really large expenditures being paid to construction companies, construction management companies. Now as it's winding down, it's smaller items. So the percentage that we've tested is a little bit lower, but the number of transactions, and I believe it was 30, is still a high number of transactions. So again, another clean report. And I think this is one that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we had a few comments, mostly related to the upkeep of the website and those types of things, but we have not had any findings related to Measure P in a number of years as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I want to thank Dr. Salvage and Mr. Martin and Mr. Osterling for their work on the committee.
Yeah, I had a comment, and I wanted Renee, our auditor, to stay up at the lectern for that. First of all, I wanted to echo everything that my fellow subcommittee members said in terms of the quality of the auditors and the administration. And then Renee, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to see how quick you are on your feet. If you could walk us through page 45 and just walk us through what our unfunded pension liability is, the increase over last year, and then the reserves that we've set up to start to be able to address that.
Okay, so page 45 being the, in the required supplementary section.
Yes,
Is
correct.
the page that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So, and there is a very lengthy footnote, I believe it's note 9 to your financial statements, that goes through all of the detail related to the PERS and STIRS activity. So what this page is letting you know is, for STIRS being on the top and then the PERS being on the bottom, what your proportionate share of the liability is. So for each of those liabilities, and I apologize, I had these at the Finance Committee, I didn't bring them to this meeting, but this is your proportionate share of that entire liability. And the proportionate share of yours, you can see it's a very small percentage, but it does equate to a very large dollar amount. And so both of these are calculated by STIRS and PERS individually, and consultation with their actuary, so it is an actuarial calculation of what that liability is, and there's a lot of factors that go into that calculation as far as what the salaries were going to be, what estimates they're using for inflation costs, healthcare costs, investments, how those will be progressing over the years. And so your proportionate share for each of those liabilities for PERS is for STIRS is 85 million, and then for PERS it's 45 million. And then that's a comparison to what your covered payroll is. And so those are the employees, the payroll that you are paying them that are eligible for each of those plans.
That's a lot of money.
So it is a number that is unfortunately getting larger. The phenomenon that happened, I believe it happened for both. I know in particular for PERS, it was both numbers went in the wrong direction, if you will. The liability went up because this is the net pension liability. So the total liability went up, and then their net assets within the pension, so the investments went down. So liability up, and then the investment went down, so the net pension liability went up even more so because those numbers were working in opposite directions. Another thing that is important to note, I think, is the valuation period that we're looking at is a year in arrears. By the time the information is all calculated and it's shared with us, they're not able to do it for the same year that we're auditing. So it's always a year behind. So this is information as of June 30, 2016. And I know sometimes there's that disconnect because if you're reading the papers, you're hearing other things about how PERS or STIRS investments are going. But that's because we're reading what's current, so we're seeing what's happening in 2017, even what's going to affect 2017-18, yet this is a valuation period as of June 30, 2016. So it's a year behind, so there's that lag time in there. I think in addition to this page, a page that you would want to notice, and let me flip to it and take you there as well. There's a sensitivity calculation for both PERS and STIRS. And just to give you some insights into how that liability can change if their investment just changes by 1%, either more positive or more negative. So if you look at page 32, there's the sensitivity calculation for STIRS. So your
Repeat
current
that page
liability,
again.
page 32.
32.
So your current liability, your proportionate share of the total liability is the 84 million, which we saw on that page 45. But if their investments do a percentage worse than what the actuaries are anticipating, that liability would increase to 122 million. If investments do a 1% better, your liability would decrease to 54 million. So you can see how much that changes. And there's the same type of analysis related to PERS, and that's on page 36.
And then, go ahead, I'm sorry, finish that out.
Yeah. Whoops. So on page 36, your liability for PERS, your proportionate share of their liability is 44 million. If investments do worse by 1%, your liability would go up to 66 million. If it does better by 1%, your liability would go down to 26 million.
And if I may add, just to put things into perspective, for STIRS, the liability in 2017 is 85 million. If you look back to 2015, that amount was only 68 million. So it's grown substantially.
Yes, it has.
And on PERS, it's gone from 25 million in 2015 up to almost 45 million in 2017. So not only is the number substantial, it's increased at a significant amount.
Thank you. And then the second part of my two-part question, can you direct us to the page where we started to reserve for that liability and show us that amount? I don't recall what page that's on.
Yes, I know we have identified for the OPEB how much you have set aside for that, and that's going to be in the RSI section as well. And let me find that page. So page 44. So and that's for the OPEB liability, and so you have a separate fund that has 14 million set aside for that. And I think it might be in note 9. Let me find.
Renee, sorry to put you on the spot. We can find that other number later.
Because that might be one of your separate funds, and I forget the fund number without all the trial balances in front of me, but if there's money been set aside in a separate fund, you have a new fund that's for pensions, is it Fund 69?
Other internal service fund, page 55, 5,314,000, maybe?
It's
Yeah,
Fund 69.
that may be on the,
I think that's it.
Yeah, on page 55, that's very, yeah, the other internal service fund, the 5.3 million is probably that number, yes.
It is that number, yes.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it is very positive that you have those set aside in another fund. Unfortunately, when the calculation is done, you don't get credit, if you will, for setting those funds aside because they're not yet in an irrevocable trust. So the only way to reduce the liability on your financial statements is if those funds are in an irrevocable trust. So it does kind of help offset your balance sheet because it's sitting in cash and it's offsetting the liability. But as far as reducing the liability, you won't get the benefit of reducing that liability unless it's in an irrevocable trust. So I know that's something that you've been discussing and maybe moving forward with at some point in time.
Thank you, Ms. Wah.
This is not for Renee. I just wanted to, well, I do want to thank the auditors and and our staff for a job well done, but I also really want to give accolades to the subcommittee under Dr. Selvage, Trustee Osterling, and also Trustee Martin, because I think that while it's unusual to have a subcommittee, I think that our board has benefited from 3 trustees who use their talents and take our fiduciary responsibility very seriously and make sure that our board is well informed. And it's hard not to sometimes delve into the weeds, but I think that for the most part, we've tried to be cautious to not overstep our bounds and go beyond policy. And I really want to thank Dr. Verdian for tolerating that. I don't think all presidents would, but Dr. Verdian, I think while it was new to him, we all learned to work together. And I say this also for the benefit, since CBT is in the audience, I think this has been important to us, and I think it's been a benefit. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wah. Our action this evening is to approve and receipt of the 2016-2017 district financial audit and the district's performance audit. I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion from Ms. Wah, a second from Dr. Salvage.
Question, please?
Further discussion?
Yeah, did that include also the Measure P bond construction performance, when you said performance audit, in the same motion, for us to,
Let's add that to the motion.
Add it, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
okay,
add that
thank
to the
you.
motion. Thank you, John.
Okay, please vote. And the vote is unanimous for the student trustee. Our next action item today is the presidential search update to Mr. President. Mr. Verdian?
It should be coming directly from you or from Dr. Selvage, because you work
Why don't
directly
you-
with the...
Right. Yes, the presidential search effort has been underway for a couple of months now. The ad hoc committee of the board, which includes myself, Trustee Wah, and Trustee Osterling, has met by way of several conference calls upon the selection of CBT as our search consultant. We have had conference calls with Sandra Serrano, and she is prepared now to give us a status report on where we are on several of the key points in this effort. And this will be a time when the entire board can, upon hearing her report, ask questions and get clarifications. And Trustee Wah, Trustee Osterling, and I might chime in at points here to elaborate.
And so I will provide you with an overview of the status of the search at this point. But first, I would like to introduce Patrick Mccallum. He is the president of the Collaborative Brain Trust, also known as CBT.
Thank you, board and staff, students, faculty. And I wanted to thank Jack Scott for showing up today. He's chancellor, president, senator. I think that he's here today is clear this love and commitment to this community college, and great to see you, Jack, and that you're part of this. So when I was called whether CBT was interested in the search, we have been in CBT. As I think you know, I get to work with these great presidents and chancellors throughout California and nationally. And we have talked about the search process, and we've had concerns about the search process, and we came up with some thoughts and ideas how we thought we could do it better. And Sandra's been involved in it. We've consulted with Jack. As you know, Bryce has had some feeling into this, and Rocky and George, and then people from chancellors from other states. How could we do this better? And so we're here today to help you find a superintendent, and we're going to do the best we can to find you the best superintendent. But the critical piece of this that no one has done until you decide to do it is we're also here to help you be successful after this election is made. And so when I was called, I couldn't, and I'm saying this legitimately, I couldn't think of anybody better to lead this search than Sandra Serrano. I've known Sandra for 17 years. Her integrity, intelligence. When she calls someone and she says, I think this is a good fit for you in Pasadena, they're going to listen to her. When she talks to the faculty and staff and the students and you, she's going to come up with a really good feel about what's going here. So we in CBT, there are 200 consultants, myself, we are committed to making this successful. And if Sandra needs our help, she's in charge. I'm prepared, and the consultants are ready to do this. So thank you for the selection. It was courageous on your part, and I think it's going to be something you're going to see around the country if we're successful here. Thank you.
Thank you. And you can see that there is good support, whether it's formal or informal support that I am receiving through this process. So I am prepared to provide you with an update. I can assure the campus community that the subcommittee, ad hoc subcommittee of the board is very much engaged and keeping me busy. But it is a busy that I appreciate because I've had an opportunity, particularly today, to meet with representatives from the external community, from the service area, as well as many individuals that are here this evening from the campus leadership groups to be provided with a better understanding of the opportunities and challenges, as well as expectations that exist across the college. So let me begin by getting this going. Oops, excuse me, I'm going to have to multitask here. Actually, I have a helper. Oh, very good, thank you. So there is a revised timeline for the search. You should have that. I'm going to have to toggle back and forth. So that's why I have an assistant here today. With regards to the timeline, there is a revised timeline. I can tell you that the portion of November and now December that we have made progress in meetings with the board subcommittee, and in fact have now received input from several campus constituents, and tomorrow that work will continue. So what was planned for November and December is actually well underway, and there will be a report that I will generate for the board with input that I've received from the President's Advisory groups, as well as from the leadership that I met with today. There is also there are also meetings planned for tomorrow. With regards to tomorrow's meeting, I will be meeting with each of the governance groups, the Management Association, the Classified Senate, as well as the Academic Senate. I was just informed that indeed the Academic Senate is a meeting of the Academic Senate, so it will be, that meeting will be conducted with more than just the president. And I, at this point, would like to let the Classified and Management Associations know that if indeed you have other representatives from your associations that wish to participate, they are encouraged to participate. Going down this, this particular document, well, I guess I'm not going to go down this particular document. Then we will be, again, I will put together a summary. I will create a summary of the constituent input, and that will inform the development of the job description. At this point, I have reviewed the job description that existed when the brochure for the last search was conducted. So I have a markup, and I have revised the opportunities and challenges, trying to synthesize that particular component of the document. And so by the end of December, I will have a draft that I will share with the subcommittee, and then from input from the subcommittee and reviewing that draft, I have met with the Director of Strategic Communications, and he has indicated to me that he can turn around the design and creation of the search brochure likely within 2 days, and so that should be completed during the first week back after the break that occurs beginning December 18th. So I believe we're going to be on track for a process that will include interviews in April. I was concerned about the changing of the board meetings in April, but I believe that with regards to the actual the screening by the committee that needs to be appointed by the board, that we will be able to remain on track without the April 18th board meeting. So at this time, I do want to point out that according to board policy, the screening committee is composed of 15 members, and that each one of the Board of Trustees is to nominate, or actually appoint, a member from your trustee areas to serve on the screening committee. Additionally, the Academic Senate, the Classified, and the Classified Senate are to each appoint 2 representatives, and the Management Association is to appoint 1 representative. The Executive Committee has 1 representative. The Student Trustee and the Associated Students and the Associated Student President or Representative serve on this committee. A memo will be prepared, but I wanted to get that on the radar so that individuals, trustees, as well as the other representative groups will begin to think about who will be serving on their behalfs. I see that there's a question.
I do have a question. I just wondered, a question was raised earlier today. You're reviewing our board policy, which states that we have 15, a group of 50. Now, is that in line with your other colleges that you've worked with? Is that a good number?
With regards to the number of numbers that serve on search committee, they vary. I would say on average you want representatives from each of your constituent groups and governance groups. So that means that you're going to have at least a committee the size of at least 10. With regards to having someone appointed by each trustee for their trustee area, I have not seen that occur in other searches. So, but it is the board policy, and it does represent the composition of the screening committee. The screening committee, their role is to review the applications, and so it is a paper screening. It is not an interview process with the candidates. They then make a recommendation to the board as to which of the applicants should move forward to be interviewed. Now, the board does have the discretion of adding someone to that interview pool, and I don't know that that has ever been done, but there is a provision that allows the board to do that. But as to size, I don't think 15 might be larger than normal, but it's within reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hilton?
Yes, so I had, thank you so far for that presentation. I was puzzled when my charge to appoint somebody to the steering committee on 2 counts. One was, first of all, what kind of time commitment we can expect from them, and I'm assuming that it's a few meetings, several meetings?
There would probably be a minimum of 2 meetings, maybe 3. But that doesn't limit the number of days or the amount of time that will need to be invested. The screening committee, there would be one meeting just to bring the entire group together and review equal opportunity provisions of law and the process, and to go over the rating of candidates. So that could be accomplished in one meeting. With regards to the actual review of the applications, that is usually what takes the most time, depending on the number of applicants. And my understanding is that can be conducted with a secure online review. Okay. And that review is password protected for each of the representatives, and can be performed online either on this campus or at a remote site such as their home.
So the steering committee then will do a paper screening of the broad pool of applicants that
Correct.
You've suggested, and then what is their charge in terms of review recommendation? With
regards to their charge is to, after the review of the applicants' files, to then make a recommendation of those candidates that meet the minimum qualifications to move forward to be interviewed by the board.
Okay. And then the final question is just a bit of advice, and again, this is my first time around on this, so forgive the naive questions. One of the things that I've been wrestling with is whether or not the person that I appoint will be the kind of person who is sort of the traditional city father or mother, you know, the kind of distinguished citizen person with perhaps experience in, you know, or should it be somebody who is really more of a representative of the community in a grassroots sense, somebody who might, for example, be part of a nonprofit organization, or because I do think that you can get there can be some bias just built in when people come from the establishment, let's just put it that way, and people who are maybe in a different sort of segment of society. So I'm puzzled about that. As an elected official, I'm concerned about that, that it not all take place at a kind of high level.
Well, really what is wanted in terms of the screening committee is that it be a diverse group of representatives of the Pasadena service area, and therefore sometimes there will be, let's say a superintendent of a school district might serve.
But are you looking for some particular expertise, or are you looking just for a general perspective on the search?
Well, it's not necessarily expertise, but you do want someone who will spend the time reviewing all of the materials, because there will be a lot of materials that need to be read, and that they can be objective in terms of meeting the board's desire to have a president superintendent that meets the minimum qualifications as will be outlined in the search brochure. And so we still have that process to go through. I don't know, how many of you were here for the last search? Okay, all right. But really, it's a representative of your choice who understands the role of higher education, specifically of community colleges, understands the needs of the community in terms of providing educational opportunity and promoting student success, and can represent the community at large and the diversity that exists in the community.
Yeah, that's what I was.
President
Well,
Fellow?
thank you so much. I forgive
Can I
the naive
follow up?
questions, but I appreciate the answer.
I'll take Mrs. Waugh, Dr. Selvage, and then Mr. Martin.
I wanted to follow up on his.
Yes, so one of the things that our subcommittee talked about is whether or not we should ask the trustees to also have an alternate ready, just in case your primary person recommended couldn't serve. But I would ask Ms. Serrano if at some point, when you're convening this timeline and you're trying to get everyone together, if someone can't serve or you're having a difficult time getting it scheduled, that at least you flag the board so that we know, or we know that representative, maybe we need to have an alternate. So my recollection was from last search, we did have a member who just had a really impacted schedule and couldn't attend the EEO training, and then couldn't attend the first review, and so we had to delay for like a month or so. And because we're on such a tight timeline, maybe it's not best served. So maybe if you have an alternate, that would be something I would recommend. The other thing is your concern about the April meeting. My recollection was that we called a special meeting of the board when we went to interview. So I would not be concerned about having it during the regular board meeting, especially if we're going to go to one board meeting. We'll probably be kind of impacted with work anyway. And then as you're going through your schedule, Dr. Verdian had asked whether, or it might have been you, Sandra, who asked whether or not what were the best times to meet. And so I just conferred earlier with Trustee Martin, because our areas kind of cover around that Rosemead Center. And so I asked several community members, and they thought after work around 6:30, maybe with some light refreshments, would be a way to get people out. So I urge the other trustees, as you look at the other sites, John Muir and here at PCC, and I think Dr. Bell recommended maybe a session at CEC, that, what works for your communities too, what are the best times.
Thank you,
Right.
Ms. Waugh. Dr. Selvage?
Okay, and I hadn't gotten to that point quite yet, but yes.
A little bit of a little more specific background on the previous search and the number of meetings of the screening committee. The screening committee had a meeting that was devoted to the EEO aspects of hiring and other HR type of matters. So there was one meeting for that. It was all hands, the entire screening committee. Then there were two separate meetings, and I don't know if they could have taken a full day, each one of those. But the members of the screening committee in the last time did have that ability to do homework and go over the applications, at home on the computer. So this sounds like it's what we were doing last time, and so that's the kind of commitment. The EEO meeting, probably I would expect two long meetings, perhaps a full day, going over the applicants and discussing them and ending up with a ranking that is forwarded. There was one rule, I remember Stan Atterbury was emphatic about this. He was our consultant last time around, and that is that a member needs to participate in all three of those meetings. They can't miss the second one and be there for the third meeting and participate in sending somebody forward. So there needs to be a commitment. That having been said, the sooner we can home in on what the dates are likely to be, the more certain we're going to be able to get somebody who can, in fact, serve.
And so I will work with the college in identifying the specific dates that those meetings will take place, subject to when the deadline occurs, that we have an adequate pool to move forward to the board for interview. So I want to make sure that while we will make every effort to have an adequate pool of well-qualified individuals that are a fit for Pasadena, it may be that because of a number of other searches that are occurring, that people are making different decisions, but we will do our best to maximize that pool.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
I wanted to try to quantify Hoyt's question on the amount of time required to review applications. And I'm going to pick some numbers that you can correct.
Okay.
Because I think I'm getting this from my rep last time, but if you're, let's say you're reading 50 applications, and it's 5 to 10 minutes per application, you just talked about 4 to 8 hours of pure reading application time. So that would be a quantitative number you might be able to share with those that are thinking about it. And I also then raised a question in my mind, do you do any preliminary screening before the committee sees the documents where there's somebody, for example, if we approve the job description that says requires a master's degree and someone doesn't have a master's or advanced degree, do you do any pre-screening that says here's a stack that just doesn't meet the minimal quals?
Yes, the minimum quals are, all files are reviewed for meeting minimum qualifications because we do not want to move forward anyone that does not meet the minimum qualifications.
So you probably are receiving, and again, I'm sure there's a wide range here, you might be receiving 80 applications of which you're queuing up 50 that have met minimum quals to go to the committee.
Right. Most will meet minimum qualifications. Another question?
Any other questions?
Any other comment on that? Okay, then continuing, the goal is to have the screening committee complete their work by the end of March, and so that we can begin to do some reference checking and also background checking and move candidates forward to be interviewed by the Board of Trustees in April. And I didn't raise the objection because I realized that, well, okay, we can call a meeting, but I had been concerned that maybe we were eliminating an opportunity to meet in April. At a necessary time. In terms of my intentions, and I had mentioned previously that this is an aggressive schedule. However, I want to ensure that the maximum number of interested and well-qualified applicants will put their hat into this ring. And that's because many searches have already begun and may have cutoff dates around March and April. And so I'd just like to make sure that we have an adequate pool for this position, for this college. Once the interviews are conducted and the board starts to identify the 3 finalists, then we do plan to have these applicants visit these college and participate in forums at the institution and invite not only internal constituents but the community at large to have an opportunity to meet and listen to these individuals and to provide feedback on a comment card where they are able to provide feedback. We will review that feedback and compile it so that can also inform the board with regards to the selection of the next superintendent president. It is my goal, hopefully it will be your goal, to have a superintendent president appointed some point in May, but certainly no later than the very beginning of June.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I just wanted to be sure. I know I missed last week's meeting or whatever, but did I hear you said 3
At least 3.
Oh, at least. I
At
missed
least.
that point. I
Yes.
just wanted to make
It
sure
may
we
be
were not.
2, but typically, if there are 3 finalists that are moving forward, it really depends on the pool and the interviews and how they have done.
And I've heard that the trustees have been sending their delegates into Mary Thompson, and we should try to do that before the Christmas holiday.
So we will see more than 3 if we have more than 3 good candidates, right?
You will see a group that the screening committee has identified
Okay.
to move forward to the board. And I don't know how large that group will be, but typically it's more than 5, maybe 10 or less, but definitely more than 5. And from that group, you will identify the finalists that rise to the top and move them forward for forums so that the campus community can be engaged in providing feedback to the board to inform the decision for the actual selection of the next superintendent president.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Watt?
Okay, all right.
Yes, I just wanted to add, you know, as our subcommittee, the President's Search Subcommittee met, one of the things that Ms. Serrano assured us, you know, is they're not counting by the numbers. So whatever number of qualified candidates are advisable or to be forwarded, promoted to the board, that's what they will do. So they're not counting numbers. And I thought that was very advantageous for us. And the other thing I wanted to add is I did have a chance to sit and hear part of the API advisory discussion with Ms. Serrano today, and I really have to applaud CBT that they've been very open to meeting whenever the community groups can meet and have made themselves available, and I think that's been very helpful. I thought the feedback that I heard that the African Americans and that the Latinos gave and the feedback I heard from the APIs, I think was very productive.
The input from each of the advisories was very consistent across the board. They certainly would like to have the committee be a diverse committee that represents the entire Pasadena area's service area, and to have candidates that mirror the community. With regards to another item that was brought up, I am meeting with constituents throughout the service area. As I indicated, I met with these advisories and some of the employees of the institution. I also had an opportunity to speak with Dr. Bell, and Dr. Bell is arranging meetings at John Muir High School, at the Rosemead Center, and also at the Foothill site. And those meetings will be conducted at a time of day that will maximize participation from individuals living in close proximity to those areas. There will also be a forum planned, a community forum planned here on the main campus. And so there will be at least 4 opportunities to receive input from the community at large as well as from the internal community.
Mr. Osterling?
Just a quick question. So do we have a deadline for the trustees and the other constituent groups making their appointments? And then if we could get a quick report from Mary on how many of those selections have already been sent to you?
Trustee Osterling, you have this in your package.
Oh, okay.
If all the appointments have been made.
Great. Thank you.
And then I had one more question. I would think that for the individual trustees here, rather than flooding Ms. Serrano with our questions, that maybe there would be a member of the ad hoc committee who could, if we have email questions, you know, who could direct those to Ms. Serrano. Is that and how would you propose to do that? Anybody volunteering?
That would be fine. I think that would be fine.
What was your recommendation? I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is that we have an ad hoc committee on the presidential search, and rather than, I may have some follow-up questions, some additional questions for Ms. Serrano, rather than us individual trustees loading her with these questions, that there could be one person on the ad hoc committee who could
Be a conduit.
be a
Would-
liaison.
Would, Mr. Ryan, would you prefer that the questions go to you, or would you prefer there be a point person at the board that forwards
I'm
this question?
fine either way. I share my email, my phone numbers. We can get those to each board member if you'd like to communicate directly with me. If you prefer to communicate with your subcommittee members.
I think that why that might be useful would be then the ad hoc committee would know what some of the questions that are coming to you are. And we could
agree.
do it either way. I could copy you on the questions, but I think it's important that the ad hoc committee be apprised of all the questions that are coming into you from the individual members.
Absolutely, and I want to assure you that however it's done, we've had great communication discussing various issues and keeping each other informed on where we are.
Great, thank you so much.
So if it's the desire of the board, I mean, I would volunteer, but it's up to you guys.
That would be fine with me. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
I second.
Mr. Osterman?
That's okay, I'm roping you into other stuff.
My question was already
Okay, Dr. Selvage?
raised.
Right, I'd just like to, I'm not going to try and pin you down to exact dates here or anything, but we're looking at trying to have the screening committee meeting in March, April, that time frame, April, and that means we have to have the applications in from the applicants by then, which means we ought to get the applications or the official announcement and the official package that somebody would look at and say, okay, I'm going to go for this, I need to get all the materials together. That would have to occur
First and second week of January.
Right, okay, so if we step back then, prior step, we need to have an approval, we need to have a final job, a position description, and we want that position description to reflect the input we've received from Rosemead, John Muir, my alma mater, CEC, and the main campus. So
Right.
what dates do you think it's practical to have those 4 meetings?
And
It seems to me it would be pretty quick.
in meeting with Dr. Bell, very quick.
Okay.
And in fact, he thought he could have it arranged possibly all in one day, but certainly if it takes 2 or 3, it is what we discussed. We know we need to move quickly.
If I may, thank you very much. Dr. Selvage, what we looked at are the dates of January 9th, 10th, and 11th to organize and hold those meetings. That will give us enough time to organize the venues and get the information out to the community members.
Those would be the days when the events would occur, and the input from that event would then be incorporated. We could have everything else in the package ready to go.
Right.
We would incorporate the input from those meetings within a couple of days of that, and we'd hit the street.
Right, and as I indicated in speaking with the Director of Strategic Communications, he felt that both design and having it ready for print could occur over the course of a 2-day period.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Martin?
So the position description, I was asked to have a position description this evening. I don't have a position description other than the existing one. I do not have this one marked up, but I have started a markup. But I did want to explain that I need the input from the groups that I'm meeting with today and tomorrow, as well as from the community at large. So this will be a work in progress. And at this point, I would, based on how we are organized, I would be relying on the board subcommittee to provide me with feedback and therefore come up with whatever will become the final job description. I have already spent several hours related to the challenges and opportunities. There is one other section that, in terms of preferred qualifications, a couple of suggestions and then somehow looking at the professional characteristics and personal qualities and start to synthesize that so that it is a readable and workable document. So that's where the position description is at this point. The existing position description is being used as a foundation from which to provide an updated job description.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
First, for Dr. Verdian, I didn't get a copy in my packet or electronically of the people that have been recommended so far for the committee.
I was just informed by Ms. Thompson that I was the only one that I had that, so it's just being circulated around
Okay,
right now.
thank you. That'll answer that one.
Thank you.
I was prepared just to make a couple short comments on the opportunities and challenges tonight. Is it, Mr. President, you want me to forward those as email or I could comment?
Comment.
Well, the first comment was a couple key items, at least to my mind, that have changed since 2014. One is it's about time for a review of our educational master plan and our facility master plan. Obviously, both of those are somewhat in the works, and both of those are sensitive to the new superintendent. It seemed to me that that would be a wonderful opportunity for the new superintendent to know
Absolutely.
that we are slowing some of that down in waiting for him or her to arrive. The second major change from 2014, at least to my mind, which has been alluded to previously tonight, is the satellite centers. And they're each unique, and they're each becoming more critical to the center of our mission to not only reach students where they are, but to also maintain the stability of the campus. And I think it's important that we highlight our emphasis moving forward in those relationships with satellite centers in the document.
Okay, I will follow up on that.
Good points, John.
So what you see here is my first attempt to synthesize the challenges and opportunities in the current brochure or job description and begin to make some changes. And again, if you can work through your subcommittee, they can let me know if this is on track or need to look at another way of trying to synthesize what has been expected.
Sandra, have we received what you have up there yet?
Have you received it? No, I guess you have not.
I thought
If
it
you're
was in our
asking me
packet.
that
No,
question,
it's in our
no.
packet.
It's in there.
It is
in
in the
our
packet?
electronic
Okay,
packet.
good, because I thought, okay,
Those are the old versions.
oh, that's the old version. Okay, then no, you do not have this yet, so I will
Okay.
get this to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just
And-
address to Linda? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, you can address to Linda.
Rather than, we don't want this document to be a laundry list, but I would love to see workforce development mentioned here somewhere. So,
Okay.
yes, that's for Linda.
I thought it
We actually
was,
mentioned
but-
that in the API community.
The very last bullet, it's mentioned, expanding outreach to the Pasadena community to ensure effective educational pathways, mentions the various groups, to meet the breadth of needed education and workforce development for a culturally, economically, and ethnically diverse population. I think there's one earlier related to business and industry, but I've written that note, and it will be
Thank you.
it will be included.
Ms. Waugh, did you?
The other thing I'd like to...
We just get a comment from Ms. Waugh.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, one of the things that the nominations committee, the subcommittee recommended to Ms. Serrano was that we try to expand outreach and maybe through an online survey. And I don't know if that's something iPro could do, help as long as Sandra is able to come up with like a list of questions that we could send out to communities, and then we, the trustees, can identify key groups that we want that sent to her input. So I don't know if that's viable or,
I did talk with the Director of Strategic Communications related to that, and not quite sure how viable it is, but we'll pursue the possibility.
it was something that was done in 2 of my K-12s as they did their superintendent search, and I think it was very helpful to have that community input. So if there's a way, it would be great.
And I'll follow up with that on that. Maybe you can give me the name of the superintendent to contact, because that was the question. How will we get the survey to individuals to respond back, rather other than just a general advertisement, if you will?
Right. So just to clarify, what the board members and the superintendent then identified key constituents for that survey to be sent to.
Okay.
So it wasn't just a blast out to everybody. It was key constituents who were involved in the educational outcomes for our community.
Okay. That alone is helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that. So if, I'm assuming, and maybe it's not the survey, but if someone can't make the meetings but wants to make a comment, I assume there's some generic board through our webpage where any member of the community can comment even if they can't attend a meeting. I'm assuming that, looking for reassurance that.
I do not know if that's available on the website. It's not something I've come across, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Or someplace where, see, I felt one of the benefits of a survey, and maybe if it was attached in a place where anyone could find it that's interested, it does provide an opportunity for reach out to those that, in essence, everyone, and it isn't limited to physically being in a place at a certain time.
I'm going to ask Director Alex Buckle-Hyde to have a button or a link on the very first page of the website to link directly to presidential search, and then you could put your survey there, you could put the request for information, you could put anything there. But there will be a link on the very first page. When you get to the website, Pasadena City College, there will be a little thing there that says presidential search, and that will include everything.
Right.
Is that something that will help you think?
Yes, I think that would be very helpful, and perhaps then just create a mailbox or someplace where they can collect that information and that Ms. Serrano will have access to, and then she can access it whenever she wants.
So what we'll do is we'll have Mr. Buckle-Hyde work with Dr. Serrano, using the input that we've received from everybody here tonight to create that specific piece of information.
And if I can continue on my question, I would assume then that there will be staff support time necessary to support that webpage and Ms. Serrano on whatever information you're trying to get up there, so you don't have to be worried about that, right?
Right. There is a great need for staff support, and certainly that will be an area where that's
so
needed.
we're getting assurances that you'll get all the support you need for that. Okay,
We'll provide you with the support for that, and Mr. Buckle-Hyde and our IT department and Mr. Mccallum will provide the necessary support to help you facilitate what it is that you would want us to do.
And again, I want to indicate that the Director of Strategic Communications, there wasn't anything he said he couldn't do. So
It's true. Alex can do anything.
Put you on that one.
That's true.
So I left there a happy person. I know, too high of expectations, huh? I get it.
We have a comment from Mr. Osterlin.
I was just, I pushed my button in response to one thing that Trustee Martin said, just for clarification. You said if someone couldn't attend the 3 meetings, they could still participate. And the only thing I wanted to stress is the screening committee is going to be looking at applications and resumes that are strictly confidential, and the only the finalists' names will be released.
Yeah, I wasn't referring to the screening committee's 3 meetings. I was referring to the MUIR CEC. 3 was the wrong number, because they're Rosemead
My
main
mistake.
campus meetings. The community meetings.
Right, I understood.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I should have been
My
clearer, and
mistake,
3 was
yeah.
the wrong number, so.
And then I also want to share that what I do want to incorporate into the job announcement really relates to the mission and values of the institution. I think it's important that applicants understand the mission and values that you as a board have adopted for the institution. So I want you to know that while you don't have a final copy today, you see their expectations of me, Alex. While you don't have a final copy this evening, it's certainly on my radar. It is being developed. I've collected a lot of information and I'm still processing it. And you will have a job description. Again, I know that the target has to be the first 2 weeks of January and no later. Otherwise, we're going to be off schedule. And I really don't want to be off schedule. Okay, so then moving on. I'm going to let you do that. I know I'll mess it up.
Well, she's.
Okay, so that was. Actually, we've
Martin.
gone through each of the documents.
Okay, I'll yield
So with regards to where we are, I've certainly heard the comments that have been made. I want you to, I would be remiss if I did not say at this time that in the absence of a vice president of human resources, that there have been a lot of individuals that have helped to facilitate the work that needs to take place on this campus and in human resources. Yuri Perez, I met with her yesterday. Again, you know, we've talked about Alex, and he's been incredible. Mary Thompson, you know, she's an angel. And I want to recognize her for her work. I'd also.
There's nothing she can't do either.
I noticed that.
She has a
than what
wild
we've given you in
side
the
that
past,
we
Mayor.
And she does it
moving it up.
pleasantly. She's just remarkable. And I have to say, I can't remember OC's last name, but OC, another person that without your help, this wouldn't be happening. And I know there's a third person, and my brain just went blank. It says Leanna Flashberg. Leanna Flashberg. So really, you have a marvelous staff, and everyone has been willing to do far more than it would be expected of them. So I thank them, and I recognize each of these individuals specifically for the work that they've done, the support that they've given. Any questions?
Ms. Waugh?
Yeah, I just wanted to just add a comment. So, you know, I know the staff is really great, but I think that even us in the subcommittee, we recognize that without the VP of HR, this was a huge burden on our staff. And so what we did was we made a recommendation to Ms. Serrano that she find someone like Vicki Nicholson, who many of us, when we went through the last rodeo, we found that to be very helpful to have a strong HR person who is very familiar with these presidential search procedures, because it does take a lot of time, and sort of especially, so we recommended that she look for support and then make some recommendations and then work with Dr. Verdian on how we might have some additional resource, because it is a very fast timeline and it just requires a lot of research, which would be a very taxing burden on our current staff.
So to facilitate that, and I will talk with Dr. Verdian tomorrow or tonight. I didn't know whether the college could actually facilitate a contract that quickly, but if not, CBT is willing to facilitate a contract of.
We can facilitate that contract for you.
Okay.
We can.
All right. Great. That'll be wonderful, because I do have a resume, a name. I've talked with the individual, and I think with the work that remains, he has all the skills necessary to really provide that level of support.
Thank you, Mr. Osterling.
This is a suggestion.
in addition to the job description and the opportunities and challenges, I think we should produce a document that many of your candidates are going to know about PCC and our community and how fabulous they are, but some won't. And I think we need to produce a document that talks about what a special place PCC is, our history, our excellence, you know, one of the top 10 in the nation, our prominent alums, and also the community that we reside in, the cultural institutions, the educational institutions, Innovate Pasadena, help making Pasadena and the West San Gabriel Valley a hub for science and technology, Caltech Art Center. We have about 1,800 nonprofits in the city of Pasadena alone, plus the rest of the institutions in the district. It really is quite a outstanding institution in the environment, and we want to communicate that to the prospective candidates.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'll make sure that, I mean, we can have links to, for example, the Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Corporation, other agencies, so that candidates typically conduct those types of searches because they want to know what the community is like. But thank you for highlighting that.
Mr. Martin?
In our, if we're lining up our public meetings for the 9th and the 11th, and there's not a lot of board meeting between now and the 9th and the 11th, it might be helpful for a quick discussion on trustee involvement in those community meetings, and maybe the word I'm thinking here is tacit involvement in those community meetings. Some searches past, there have been 1 or 2 trustees signed up for each of those meetings in each of those locations that just tacitly sat there and listened to the community input, but the community knew there was a trustee present. I don't know if you find that to be helpful or not. I'd appreciate your comment on that. And if we do think, after your comment, it is helpful, then maybe it's the committee or Linda or somebody that will, once we know the time and locations, make sure we have 1 or 2 available.
I do think it's helpful. The people that show up, they want to know that the college is receiving this input, and it makes a great impression on the community when, in fact, a trustee is present at a meeting, because they know that the trustees are hearing it firsthand and not through another representative. So if there is a trustee that is able to attend 1 or more of these meetings, I would encourage it.
Mary, why don't we put a form out, a list, when we get the meetings, and then trustees can sign up? I think that's a good idea.
We just can't get too many of you at any one meeting, okay?
Just 2 at the most. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other suggestions?
I see none. Thank you for your presentation this evening.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It really has been a wonderful group of people to work with, and I'm convinced that you are going to have a number of applicants, and we'll be able to find a exceptional president among them. So, yeah, have a good evening.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
We now will turn to item number 3 in our action items today, which is adoption of Resolution 577, method of payment and word limitations for candidate statements. This is pro
Well,
forma.
we have a resolution, and this resolution is the same resolution that this district has used over the years. As you will notice, this resolution calls for a statement of no more than 200 words, and also the payment is made directly by the candidate, and we have tried to contact the county office to find out whether there is a difference between 200 words and 400 words. And the answer we got was that that information is divulged directly to the candidates when they do their filings. And at PCC, the resolution has always been for 200 words.
Significant number of dollars
Yes.
per word.
Yes, yes, yes. The wishes of the directors?
I believe, is the resolution for 200 as it has been? If so, also move.
Second.
Approval?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Ms. Waugh for their discussion. Please vote. Unanimous with, except for Mr.
Push your
Hills.
green button, Hoyt.
It's unanimous vote, including the student trustee.
We just voted, you're going to pay for everybody's candidate statement.
Item number 4 tonight is approve and adopt the 2018-2019 and the 2019-2020 academic calendars. The wishes of the trustees.
Approval.
No, I was going to present them.
Go ahead. I got-
As you will notice that we are presenting the calendar for 2 years, 18, 19, and 19, 20. That is so necessary because starting fall of 2018, we will be presenting our students with a 2-year scheduling. Therefore, we needed to have the 2-year academic calendars presented to the board for approval. And I'm going to thank, I want to thank Dr. Juni for the work that he has done in leading that committee, and I want him to introduce that item.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So as Dr. Verdian said, we're doing this so that it will be possible for us to post 2-year academic schedules. Obviously, we needed the start and end dates, especially for this. I also want to point out that one considerable difference in these two calendars that what we've seen before is that they're not a difference, but we have 2 flex days. But what's different is that one of those flex days, the fall flex day, is actually occurring on the Friday before the start of classes on Monday. So that's a significant change to previous academic calendars that we've had at Pasadena City College. I'll answer any other questions that board members might have about these specific calendars as well.
Is there any questions?
If there's one thing I've learned, it's not to ask questions on the calendar.
That is probably very wise.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Brown, a second from Mr. Osterling. Please vote. And the vote is unanimous, including the student trustee. Our 5th item today is approve the unclassified salary schedule to accommodate the adjustments of the minimum wage increase effective January 1st.
And as you mentioned, Mr. President, this is just to make the necessary adjustment to reflect the change in the minimum wage, and we are recommending that the board approves this.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
A motion from Ms. Waugh, second from Mr. Martin. Mr. Salvage, do you have a comment?
Right, yeah, I was wondering, is there an impact on the salary schedule for those who were above the new minimum already? Do we have an adjustment? Do we sort of keep a separation between the positions at the lower end of the scale when we move up the bottom?
Right.
Do we have a kind of a compression, or do we maintain a certain amount of
Right. My
separation?
understanding is that there is none, but I'm going to ask Dr. Storti to confirm that.
That's correct. There's not an impact on the different levels above.
So this sort of what some people call compression at there?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? If not, please vote. The vote is unanimous, including the student trustee. The final action item today, number 6, is approval of additions, deletions, and modifications to the credit and non-credit curriculum.
Again, I want to thank Dr. Juni for the hard work in getting all this through. I know they had a marathon session last week. And Dr. Juni, would you please tell us a little bit about the additions, deletions, and modifications?
So thank you, Dr. Verdian. And yes, actually the last 2 meetings of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee have been marathon meetings. Obviously, you have before you a packet, a considerable packet of curriculum changes, additions, and deletions. What I tried to provide for you, what Dr. Verdian had asked for an executive summary of it that was 2 pages in length, and I gave you one that was, I believe, 4 pages in length because of the amount of curriculum that's here. There's not a whole lot of detail in that, but what's also attached to that then is what Liz Wood, who is the classified person who puts this report together for you, a table of contents that basically lists the specific courses and programs that were either added, modified, or deleted. I asked for a change in that because in the past, what was just provided to the board were basically numbers, so Accounting 101 without telling you the title of that. So the title was added to hopefully help you go through this. And then there's over a 100-page document that gives you specific information on each of those changes to the curriculum and the rationales that are attached. I gladly will answer any questions that you have on this. There is a lot of information here, and so I apologize to you that you get such a bulk. Realize though that a change that has been made since my arrival here is that you used to have quite a bulk of this because there are only 2 meetings that you approve curriculum at, this one and the one at the end of June. And so because you've been approving curriculum at all of your meetings as it has come through CNI, the bulk of this actually is less than it used to be. And the CNI committee will be evaluating our process again to try to spread this out over the year, as opposed to having such a large bulk of curriculum at just the December and June 30th meetings.
I enjoyed reading it 'cause I'm a curriculum freak, and when you see innovations, that means you're doing a good job. Ms. Brown.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let me say thank you for the breakdown you have in the acronyms. That kind of help us really understand what we're reading. All of us are not from academia, so you have to. So to me, that was very important. But I had asked a question earlier, I think, on Monday regarding the deletions of the 9 units in cosmetology, and I was told that they were replaced by 2. So I was having problem processing that, so if maybe you could help me.
Sure, I can walk you through that. So it's actually, if you have the document in front of you, the courses that Trustee Brown is referring to are 1, 2, 3, 4 pages in under the Community Education Center. And what's listed there basically are deletions of 9 cosmetology courses, 114A through 117B. And so basically what's happening here is that these courses are being deleted. We actually have not offered these courses for a number of years because a few years back you approved changes or additions to the curriculum that included cosmetology 100 through cosmetology 109. And those courses basically were added to solve a problem that was occurring with the courses that are being deleted in scheduling. And so it made it difficult for students to work their life around the cosmetology schedule because these courses that are being deleted were long-hour courses that required them to be there for long days throughout the week. And so the curriculum that is now offered of cosmetology 100 through cosmetology 109 was to adjust that curriculum so that it was easier to schedule and easier for students basically to complete the curriculum. Those courses are offered over a 3 sessions. So basically we'll have a cohort of students that start in fall. They'll take 3 courses in fall. They'll then take 3 courses in spring, and they'll finish the sequence with 3 courses during the summer. A different cohort basically will start with spring to summer to fall, and another cohort would start summer, fall, and finish in the spring. And so These deletions are basically courses that have been on the books. We haven't offered over the last couple of years. We don't delete courses at the same time that we add new courses, because we want to teach them out, and we want to be sure basically that we're ready that we've implemented a new program and it's all working before we delete the courses that have been replaced. But as I said, it's been a couple of years since we've offered Cosmetology 114A through 117B, and so it is time to delete. But we still have a viable cosmetology program that is doing quite well, and in fact, it is filled to capacity. The only way we could grow the program is to modify the facilities, and at this point, we're not proposing that, and we're not doing that. But the cosmetology program is doing quite well at the Community Ed Center.
So I understand, and thank you for your answer. So the scenario that you described, does this pose a limitation on the amount of students that could actually take advantage of the program?
So our program right now actually is providing the maximum enrollment that can be provided by the facilities that we have, and so the only way we could expand it is to expand the facilities. But it is basically the enrollment. We are serving as many students as we can with the way that this curriculum allows, and the way this curriculum is set up basically allows us to be as efficient as our facilities allow. So the only way we could serve more students is to expand the facilities.
Student trustee.
So I was just curious as to where you gained that student feedback from. Was it because of, let's say, students dropping the course by the end of the semester, or like low student turnout in those courses, or?
You mean what drove the change?
Yeah, what drove the initiative?
So I might have to rely on Dr. Bell to join in, because I wasn't here when that change was initially made. But what my understanding is that students were, with that curriculum that was being deleted, part of it were enrollments, but part of, I'm sure, students talking to faculty and administrators about the fact that they couldn't participate because of the way it was scheduled. But if Dr. Bell could add to that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Juni. What I would add is it was a question of student retention and student completion. As Dr. Juni has indicated, it was difficult for students to complete the program. The way the program is offered now, and I think maybe to get to your question, Trustee Brown, is the new curriculum has allowed the program to bring on a third cohort. So we have 3 cohorts running at alternate times, beginning times, and they complete at different times, again, as Dr. Juni has identified. So this new curriculum has, in fact, allowed us to increase the number of students who are enrolled in cosmetology simultaneously.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Seeing nothing further, please vote. Motion passes unanimously with the student trustee in the affirmative. We now turn to information items and the superintendent president's report.
Thank you, Dr. Feller. I just would like to start by congratulating you on your election as president of the board, and I congratulate all the new board officers. I also want to thank Dr. Ross Selvage for your 1 year of presidency of the Board of Trustees of the Pasadena Area Community College District. And we will recognize your leadership at the January meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. You will also notice that in your package we have included the annual report of Pasadena City College, and I want to thank Mr. Mccallum and his team for putting this report together, and I have shared that report with the CEOs of the community college districts across the state, and they were all very impressed by the quality of the work that we do at Pasadena City College. As you know, we are currently enrolling students for winter and spring, and our enrollment compared to same point last year are pretty solid. We are maintaining the numbers, and for winter and spring, in both cases, we are slightly above, about 35 to 50 full-time equivalent students above enrollment last year at the same time. Last week, I was joined by several representatives of the college as we were recognized by the Campaign for College Opportunity for our work to grant associate degrees for transfer. For the second year in a row, we were in the top 5, and this year we even tied for second place. This is a feat that not too many colleges have achieved. We are pleased to be honored in this way. There was also an impressive scene at the Rose Bowl 2 Wednesdays ago, as America's Stadium unveiled a new statue of Jackie Robinson, wearing his football jersey from Pasadena Junior College. The event was a block party featuring students from Cleveland Elementary, John Muir High School, and our own Lancer Marching Band, football team, cheer squad, and others from PCC. Each of these Pasadena institutions were places that Jackie Robinson attended as a young man. There were about 400 people that were present there to see the unveiling of the statue, including about 100 members of Jackie's family. The event was emceed by none other than Vince Scully, and I was pleased to be joined at that event by Dr. Selvage, Dr. Bell, former PCC Foundation President John Gregory, and many others from our community on hand to celebrate this moment. Last Friday marked our annual scholarship celebration, where the foundation distributed about $238,000 in scholarships to students. It was a fantastic event that brought together our donors and students to celebrate PCC. And I'd like to thank all the trustees that were present at this event. Yesterday, we had the nursing pinning ceremony for our graduating class of registered nurses, a wonderful event attended by faculty, staff, and again, we are very proud of the work that we are doing here. The college also hosted our flagship One Book, One College activities, culminating in an evening of reflection on the novel Dawn by PCC alumna Octavia Butler. Sexton Auditorium was alive with a performance by the Town Street Theater, interpreting Butler's futuristic work. Members of Miss Butler's family were on hand, and they shared that they were very proud, grateful, and honored to take part. This was a huge success for our students and for our broader community. Since we're talking of books, I want to recognize English professor Brian Kennedy for the publication of his book, Mixing Memory and Desire: Why Literature Can't Forget the Great War. Dr. Kennedy's work examines fiction recently written about World War I to understand why the war to end all wars continues to stimulate our collective consciousness. Dr. Kennedy is pleased to report that he was able to complete a substantial portion of his work during his recent sabbatical. Again, congratulations to Brian. And as you know, the Military Times ranking came out, and Pasadena City College is again #1 in California, and the #2 school in California is Norco. And lastly, as you may have seen when you came into the building, we are currently advertising our Winter 2018 intersession on campus and around our region. I think you've seen right in front of this building and in front of the library the type of work that we are doing to promote our sessions. In fact, also when audiences flock to theaters to see the new blockbuster Star Wars movie this holiday season, they will be treated to a special advertisement before the movie, showing off our campus and our winter term. I'm assuming that many of you have seen that already. All right. So that's right. PCC will be living in the same cinematic universe as Luke Skywalker this December. May the Force be with us.
Where are those ads going to be showing? Where are those ads going to be showing?
All those theaters in this area, right? In Arcadia, in Pasadena, and right?
Outstanding.
So we would like for you to go to those movie theaters, and
Okay.
you'll be seeing all that.
Very exciting.
And I wish all of you happy holidays. And our next board meeting, as you know, is in January. Thank you again, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Meridian. This is the time for announcements by Shared Governance and the Board of Trustees, and we'll begin with Classified Senate.
Hi, good evening. The Classified Senate was successful at the Foundation's Giving Tuesday fundraiser. We collected 205 tickets, which raised just a little bit over $200. These proceeds will be applied to our Michael Buckhouse Scholarship Fund for student scholarships. In addition, the Senate would like to thank Pat Kraus in Fiscal Services for volunteering her time, resources, expertise, and creativity to help make this a success. We recently held our professional development workshop on December 7th. We had 41 RSVPs and 30 staff members attended. This was a 50% increase from our last workshop. Our next workshop will be conducted in the spring and will focus on acclimating classified professionals on the various areas of the campus community. The Senate will be sending out a survey relatively soon to gather feedback and data in order to ensure that the classified day theme topics, workshops, and speakers are in line with the requests and needs of our classified campus community. This data will also be used to plan and execute a successful Flex Day in the spring and develop future topics for our education series of classified Senate workshops held throughout the year. Finally, we're in the preliminary stages of planning for classified days. The Classified Senate is planning to coordinate 3 days this year to better accommodate all classified and increase participation. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Management.
We have no report, but we will be back in January. Best to everyone. Thank you.
I hope so. Student trustee.
I would like to start off by congratulating the board officers that were elected into their positions this evening. The Associated Students Vice President of Publicity and I organized Mental Health Awareness Week towards the end of November in vision of creating a sense of community and support regarding mental health on campus. In particular, I was in charge of organizing the speaker panel, which was actually a really great success. We had 2 speakers join us for the panel, a researcher from Paraxel International and a researcher from Caltech. They disclosed some of their research and they actively engaged with students in a discussion panel. Also, Associated Students and I hosted Advocacy Week from November 15 to 16. Our main focus was to provide resources, support, and allyship to our undocumented students. Through this event, we gained insight on the social justice issue within our campus. We ended the week with our student empowerment rally, where we gave students the opportunity to share their honest experiences. We had various billboards in front of the quad area with different headers geared towards undocumented LGBT students, as well as women and people of color. Our vision was to show students the people on campus that are there to support them and to remind them that we are all here to achieve a better future. Happy holidays, and this concludes my report.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
I don't have a report, but I really must say that I am just so excited that PCC is now engaged in outreach. I mean, what Dr. Verdeen said just melt my soul, because I was kind of mad seeing all these colleges advertising everywhere and no PCC. So now we're on it. I'm very excited about that, yes.
Mr. Hilsman.
Yes, and the foundation, I think, has plans now to get a couple billboards out in Old Pasadena, and we're also going to be at the Lemley, which is the appropriate demographic for the PCC Foundation donors. So we'll have some cards up there. And the other thing I should mention, I hope it's appropriate, I'm president of one of the local political clubs, and we had 2 members of the Associated Students come to hear a presentation by a group that's doing outreach for voter registration, and I know that they came back to the Associated Students probably with a report and some recommendations about that. So we're going to have an interesting year politically next year, and I think it'd be great if if our students could engage and register and help to register others in the voting process. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Salvage.
I attended the unveiling of the statue of Jackie Robinson over there at the Rose Bowl, and It's a statue with a finish, which is going to make it a beacon when the sun hits it. I'm telling you, it's you know, going to light up the whole arroyo there. One of the things that was pointed out during that ceremony, okay, he's wearing the PCC uniform. He's got the number 55. That was the number he wore when he competed here. But it was pointed out, and I can't remember the number, but he played more games in the Rose Bowl there in a PCC and in a John Muir uniform that he did in a UCLA uniform when he transferred over and was an incredible athlete at UCLA. So I think it's great that we get that recognition, even though it says Pasadena Junior College. Everybody knows that's PCC.
Yes.
Let's see. There was some. Yeah, I went to the Friday night ceremony where the foundation handed out, I think it was $238,000 of scholarship money to a lot of really deserving students, and all of that money is private donations. That's all private donations that are distributed there. So that's almost $250,000, and they're doing it every year, and they're helping an awful lot of students. The 3 students who each got a surprise. They didn't know they were going to get the top award, but there were 3 of them that got the top award, $5,000 each. And the stories that the people in the foundation there told about those students and the things they confronted and why they deserve this money is really incredible. Every year that is. Dr. Verdian is in the running for an award from NCMPR. Okay, Public Relations. That's what the last 2 letters stand for. What are the first letters, Dr. Verdian? Oh, Alex. Public Relations, yes. He has received stellar recommendations, and he's been recognized for Region 6, and so he's now in the running for the National Award. So congratulations, Dr. Verdian. And so this is this meeting has concluded my term as president of the board. It's gone so fast, but I want to thank everybody for their support during this time, and also from time to time patience and indulgence. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Osterling.
I also attended the Scholarship Awards last Friday night, and it really is inspiring to hear the story of some of those scholarship recipients. But I would be remiss if I also didn't mention that our very own student trustee, Emily Exhian, hoovered up 2 of those scholarships herself. And our Associated Students President, Kylie Lamb, was also up there receiving scholarship awards. So congratulations to you. To both of you.
Thank you.
When was it, Linda? On Monday, thank you. We had our laxed December meeting. We conducted a lot of business at that meeting. Basically, we had a holiday performance by the Garvey School Rhythm Max choral group, and it was inspiring, and I'm in the holiday mode. We are now back to business, though, in our January meeting for laxed. We are going to actually have a panel go toe-to-toe. It promises to be lively, I assure you. We're going to have a panel consisting of public school advocates, if you will, and charter school advocates. And we're going to sponsor a debate, so that should be very lively, very interesting. Linda, do we know the date and the venue yet for that, or that's still to be?
We don't. It's still in progress, so
Yeah.
we'll send that out. But
So we'll let everybody know about that. And that concludes my report, other than happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Happy holidays is my report.
Ms. Waugh.
Well, I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Verdian for the MOU with Singpoli on the hotel management. I think it's something that will really benefit our group. And for those of you who have ever been to the Doucet Hotel over on, I guess it's Colorado and Mentor, you'll see that they're expanding. And I think that when we get into the culinary arts coursework, I think that will really also benefit our community. So thank you for doing that. I also wanted to talk about the Pcc Veterans. So we attended their holiday party, and one of the things they did, so the veterans are always in need, and our hearts always go out to them, but they in turn were sponsoring a fundraiser to raise funds for Puerto Rico for their disaster and to collect toys for them. So I think that they're still open if anybody wants to make a donation to them. I encourage that. And next week, I think they have a bowling night. So if anybody wants to do that, I think it's on Thursday. And then I also wanted to thank Trustee Osterling, because one of the things that we have been talking about, and especially the subcommittee on our budget and finance, has been talking about the unfunded liability. So at the joint meeting of the CEOs and the trustees at the state under the league, Chancellor Galatello offered to spearhead a subcommittee at the state level looking at the unfunded liabilities and any possible solutions. So I offered Trustee Osterling to participate in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's always volunteering me for things.
That's good. I want to thank Dr. Selvage for his leadership the past year, and I think we got a lot accomplished, and I want to thank you for your support in electing me president this evening. I was looking forward to working with you. It seems like every time I'm president, we're looking for a new president, and because I think you've done such a fine job, and I think you're been an outstanding president. The good thing is during my presidency, is I'm just been granted a sabbatical. And I'm probably going to become a student at PCC. I want to study advanced Italian, but I really want to study piano and art. And speaking of art, you have such a fine program, and my wife, just at home, talks about your professors here. She came, she's an MBA, and she came back to school here. And the upshot is that in the spring, she's going to have, because of the education here, she's going to have a showing in Florence of her work. And she's going to invite all of you. She's having a reception. So,
In Florence?
Yes.
Florence or here?
And so she's very happy with that. But I look forward to working with you, and I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and I hope to see you all tomorrow night. So thank you. This meeting is adjourned. If there's nothing that we have to deal with future agenda meeting?
The next meeting is in January. We will have that date. And also agenda, I want to go over some agenda items that you will have in January. There will be many presentations in January, but each one will be no more than 5 minutes. There will be a brief presentation on our ACCJC midterm report. There will also be a presentation on our integrated triple SP and equity report, a presentation on our dual enrollment report, and with some engagement on your part, and also a presentation on the strong workforce. The reason why all those reports are coming at the same time is because they are all due at about more or less the same time, and staff had to work on all of them more. So, but like I said, it will be about 5 minutes for each one of them plus Q&A. So,
Do you have a question?
Yes, Dr. Verdian, is the annual report available online now? Is there a link?
Which one?
The PCC annual
The
report.
PCC annual report, is it available online, Alex? We can make it available online, yes.
Yeah, I know some people would like to see that.
Okay, I can. We do have a PDF version of it that we can forward to you, but we'll put it online as well. Right.
Thank you all for your work this evening. This meeting is adjourned.